Hello and welcome to today's episode of Socially Distant Discover Nature. Our topic of the day is Tansy Beetles, but before we get onto that we're going to start with our usual catch-up. Now Ivana from St Nick's sent in this beautiful photo of bluebells and hagwood, and also a little video update of some flowers that are on St Nick's itself. These are red campion, beautiful colours. Jack has been out and about and they photographed some forget-me-nots, some hawthorn in flower and gorse as well. Sean has sent us in this amazing collage of insects that he's seen in and around St Nick's. It's just absolutely astounding how much biodiversity, how many creatures are out there if you just look for them. And particularly remarkable is his first dragonfly of the year. Right in the centre there. It is, according to my limited knowledge, a broad-bodied chaser dragonfly. Now the females are this kind of olive greenish colour and the males are a sort of powdery blue colour. So watch out for them if you've got sources of water near you, ponds, lakes, rivers, and let us know if you see any. Tracy from Dunnington was very kind to send this video of woodland, and not only is it woodland, but in the background, if you listen carefully, you can hear a cuckoo. This is magnificent. Cuckoos have undergone incredible declines. It's very rare you hear one these days, so we're very lucky to hear this at all. So thank you very much to Tracy. Catherine has sent us in another photograph of a peacock butterfly. This one looks slightly unusual. It seems to be missing 2 wing spots. Now the reason of this is that the forewings and the back wings of butterflies aren't really joined together like they are in bees. So the forewings, the big ones, can fold over part of the back ones, so they're hiding 2 of the eye spots. It's also on wild garlic or ramsons, which is an amazing plant, really good for identifying, and it's got a nice kind of garlicky smell if there's any crushed leaves nearby. The scent of spring, if you can have scents of seasons. Finally, and reluctantly, it wouldn't be a catch-up if we didn't go to our roving wildlife reporter, who this time not only apparently has information about wildlife, but also a musical reference as well. I'm sure we're all looking forward to hearing that. Go.
Yes, hello Phil. Genghis Marazipan here, wildlife roving reporter. Now I found a sweet little thing here. It's a little bird larking about in the sky, making quite a jolly trilling sound. I'm not sure you can hear that, but this bird is a tit, and it's been made famous by that German composer Ralph von Williams, probably pronounced von Williams, and in that wonderful piece he wrote called The Tit Ascending. I love it. Anyway, I'll try and find this bird for you. Hang on a second. No. Seems to have vanished. A bit disappointing that. Back to you.
Well, at least you got my name right. The rest of it, there's so many layers of wrongness. It's really quite a beautiful construct. The bird that wasn't there was almost certainly not a tit, it was a skylark. We've had calls of them in the past sent in. They go up and they call really loudly, then they do their parachuting display, flies down. The musician is not German, he's Ralph Vaughan Williams, not Von, and it's not the tit ascending, it's the lark ascending. I don't think I can get you a copyright-free piece of music to play, so I recommend just Googling it because it's an amazing piece of music and you should listen to it immediately. After you've watched the rest of the video, obviously. Right, and now the part you've all been waiting for, not the end, cheeky. It's the Tansy Beetles segment. So first off, we'll start off with the basics. What is a Tansy Beetle? A Tansy Beetle, as the name suggests, is a beetle, so it's an invertebrate, an insect with its 3 body sections, head, thorax, abdomen. Beetles, particularly notable because they have what are called biting mouth parts, mandibles for chewing and biting, and they have elytra. These are modified sort of wings, you can call them wing cases, but they're the brightly coloured, usually opaque, little shell-like things that keep the real, genuine flight wings safe. Tansy beetles are part of the family Chrysomelidae, which are also, or often, known as leaf beetles. Quite a lot of species in there, a lot of them are brightly coloured, some are considered quite nasty agricultural pests, such as the Colorado leaf beetle, which incidentally also looks absolutely amazing. Special guest today is my friend Timothy, or Teresa the Tansy Beetle. I hope this is in shot. So again, classic beetle shape. We've got the head, thorax, the abdomen with the elytra on. You got your 6 insect legs, 2 antennae. Very nice, absolutely beautiful. I know I say that about everything, but this time it is true. And I'll show you some footage as well, because they're much shinier than this in real life, and also ever so slightly smaller. More like the size of one of the fingernails. Depends how big your fingernails are, but about 1 centimetre, 10 millimetres in length. Just beware of confusion species. There are plenty of leaf beetles out there that can add to the mix. Dock beetles are particularly problematic. You could call them poor person's Tansy Beetle. A photo by Sean and some from myself showing the differences. They're a lot smaller, a lot less chunky, and you find them almost exclusively on dock. So if you don't know what a dock leaf is, I don't know what you were rubbing on your leg when you were a kid and got stung by a nettle, look up dock in a plant book or online. Get that in your mind and you'll see dock with dock beetles on. Usually docks have been nibbled to anywhere from slightly to oblivion, so they're quite easy to spot. I had a great photo sent in by Suzanne, who's actually managed to capture the Tansy Beetle in the foreground and a dock beetle in the background. There's another little leaf beetle here that we do have at St Nick's, which is the alder leaf beetle. It's got more of a bluey turquoisey tint, as you can see in this photo from Sean. The Tansy beetles are named after their food plant, which is called tansy. If you haven't seen this, again, I really shouldn't keep telling people to Google it. No, wait, we're not Googling it. I'm going to put a picture up. So I don't have many photographs of tansy, which I realised last night when I was gathering the stuff for this video. But if you imagine a large oxeye daisy that you've plucked all the white petals off, leaving just the yellow blobby centres, that's what tansy looks like. The flowers are really good for all sorts of pollinating insects, as you can see from this solitary bee on this picture. Tansy beetles themselves aren't that interested in the flowers, they're eating the leaves. Although dock beetles are exclusively, well, almost exclusively found on dock, tansy beetles generally found on tansy, but they can stray to other plants, including dock, and that's where things get confusing. So work out your confusion species. Tansy beetles have an extremely interesting and slightly convoluted life cycle, which I have perpetually struggled to imprint in my brain, and as soon as this video stops, no doubt I will forget everything. What I've done to help myself remember is make a Tansy Beetle life cycle wheel for all the months of the year. And if you want your own Tansy life cycle wheel, I'll ask Ivana to put the template onto the usual Discover Nature website. I'm quite proud of it. We might do some digital twirling with it later, so stay tuned. I'll attempt to take you through some of the basics of the life cycle, because it is pretty weird. We start off the beginning of the year when adult beetles are asleep, hibernating, diapause, standby mode, call it what you will. They're underground, powered down. And it's not until about April time when these adults emerge out and then they start eating tansy plants, looking for mates, doing their thing, mating and laying eggs. Here's a photo of tansy beetles propagating the next generation by Sean. Because I do enjoy a good prop, here is a single leaflet of a tansy plant, massively enlarged. It's probably only going to be that length in real life, with some tansy beetle eggs, which are little sort of cylindrical, ovally shaped yellow blobs. Again, we'll put some prop photos on as well, but look at this, they're good. These yellow eggs will hatch out in about May onwards, and out will pop the larva. So the larvae, plural, they look a bit sort of slug-like, grey. I've never actually seen one. The larvae will be eating the tansy leaves. Woo! Tansy leaves. In the month of June, they will burrow underground and then turn into a pupa. This is the metamorphosis stage, transformation stage, and they'll stay underground from then. The adults that emerged in the April will die off having completed their part of the life cycle. So during the month of July, you won't be seeing any adult tansy beetles above ground. However, if you're disappointed that you missed them on your trip to York, you won't have to wait very long, because in August, those larvae will have pupated fully and fresh new adults will emerge. These new adults are not necessarily interested in mating, they are just out for the eating of the tansy plants. They do have, in theory, functioning wings at this point in their life cycle, so they could fly and disperse, but they won't, because that's not really their deal. There's only been one documented case of a flying tansy beetle from the Netherlands, so if you see a tansy beetle fly, it's about as rare as Dumbo and a flying elephant, if not rarer. These adults that have emerged in August, munching away on tansy, will be around till about September, late September, at which point they themselves will then burrow underground, ready to hibernate, to overwinter underground. And that's it. That's all you'll see of them until the following year in April, where those adults pop up again and the whole process resumes. If you want to see a tansy beetle and you don't live in York, you're mostly stuffed. Their stronghold has been the River Ouse in York, and they're visible on a kind of long stretch encompassing the city, going about 8 kilometres north of the city centre to about 26-ish kilometres south of the city centre. If you want to see one in person, kind of now is the time. So my tip to you would be, if you're around the city centre of York, near the museum gardens, you want to head out of the museum gardens onto the cycle track / footpath that goes along the river, heading out of the city centre. You want to walk along that footpath. Can't remember its name. I think it starts out as something like Dame Judi Dench's Walk. Keep heading out. Past the green playing field area, and where that playing field area sort of stops, almost kind of opposite the National Railway Museum, there's trains going past, you'll be able to see them. There on the left hand side of the path there will be some tansy plants. You don't even really need to step off the path to see them, and I recommend not doing that. Partially due to dog dirt and partially due to falling in the river and drowning. So yeah, be safe. But there should be some tansy plants along there, or from then onwards, and the beetles will just be there, so keep an eye out. Yeah, and if you can come to recognise tansy wherever you are in the city of York, look on every tansy plant you find. You might find some beetles. If you're outside of York, there are only 2 other locations where tansy beetles are currently known. The first one is Woodwalton Fen in Cambridgeshire, and these were only discovered in 2014 by Dr. Peter Kirby. Slightly more recently, and a surprise to everyone, was in 2018 when they were discovered on the Wildlife and Wetlands Trust Welney Wetlands Centre. And now, I imagine these populations are not particularly accessible and the reserve managers do not want people trampling all over them, so I would advise speaking to reserve staff before you go in search of them, and chances are they'll probably be off limits for their own safety, which is probably good if they're quite a fragile population. So why are they rare? Did I mention they were rare? They are rare. They are classified in the UK as nationally rare, although if you are in York you may see loads of them, but the rest of the country largely devoid. I've heard them described as critically endangered on the IUCN Red List, though bizarrely when you type in their name into the IUCN website there are no records found. I don't know if that means they're very rare, possibly they just don't have any solid data. One reason they're rare is that they are slightly curtailed by shortcomings. Well, I don't know, a bit harsh to call them shortcomings. There's aspects of their biology that lend themselves to their current unfortunate circumstances. That's the polite way of putting it. They eat almost entirely a single species of plant, which is tansy. There has been reports of them eating things like watermint, gypsywort, but the majority of it is tansy. Something just fell on the roof. I'm not going to worry about it. This is quite a restricted diet, therefore the fate of the beetles is largely linked to the amount of tansy there is in the environment. The second issue that they have is that they're extremely poor dispersers. I mentioned that they pretty much don't fly, so if they want to disperse, move to a new clump of tansy, they have to do it by walking very slowly. And studies have found that distances greater than 200 meters are pretty much impassable, which can be quite a problem. None of this would really be a problem if there was loads of tansy in the environment, but there isn't. And the reason is humans, as is often the case. One of the big reasons is unsympathetic land management. So, for instance, overgrazing on riverbanks. Cattle have gone in, or sheep, and have grazed the tansy to oblivion, therefore the beetles have no food source left. Excessive drainage or altering of the water levels can alter the environment, dry it out, meaning that tansy can no longer grow in certain places. And then also you've got things like development, physically building on the riverbanks, altering stuff, messing around with it. Sometimes it's necessary, flood defences, but still it's all contributing to the destruction of tansy. Near where I live, someone built a shiny new fence right next to a patch of tansy and pretty much obliterated it. It used to be many metres long, and now there's about that much. Infuriating is a word that comes to mind. There are other words, but we're not broadcasting them. Another reason linked to unsympathetic land management is trees along the riverbank being allowed to grow, particularly willow trees grow up really big, they shade out the tansy, it dies off, beetles are stuffed. Another competitor is a non-native invasive species, Himalayan balsam. Tall shoots, kind of crunchy, pink flowers, smells a bit weird. It grows really fast, it outcompetes the tansy and can shade it out as well. We also need to mention flooding. Flooding can be a major problem for tansy beetles. Not so much the adults, as they've got air trapped under the wing cases so they can kind of float off downstream to start a new adventure and a new life. It's the eggs and the more sedentary larvae, that can get completely drowned out and destroyed by flooding. Flooding which is likely to become more frequent with climate change. I was recently made aware of an interesting case study from Jeff Oxford from York University. We were discussing these tansy beetles found near Moncton by Suzanne, and Jeff said he'd surveyed them last year and found almost 10,000, estimated population of 10,000 in that area. But as recently as 2012, the flooding there rendered that entire population extinct, wiped them completely out. And the population that Jeff found last year, those 10,000, have come from authorised reintroductions into that area. So flooding is an issue. That's the series of unfortunate events that have led to tansy beetles becoming and staying rare. Do you want to dispel some misinformation while we're here? There's a kind of urban legend that tansy beetles were rendered rare because they were used by Victorians as sequins. It's not true. Certainly I've never seen any museum gowns or anything with sequins on, and even the Bug Life website says it's a myth. So let's just take that little bit of information, that little falsity, put it in a box and shove it away. Is anything being done to save them? Well, fear not, a lot is being done to save them by a great many people. Charities, conservation organisations, volunteers, academics, the whole shebang are working to help save the tansy beetle and have had a great deal of success. So we'll just explore a few of their methods that they have been using so far. The first one is to protect existing clumps of the tansy plant, the beetle's food source. So to protect it and the beetles within it. Now, one of the ways they've done this is by fencing off areas of tansy plants to protect it from overgrazing, or any grazing at all, allowing it to persist. Another way is to coppice willow. That's to kind of chop it back to let light in so it doesn't outcompete the tansy plants. Coppicing rather than removing, because if you remove the willow, that takes away the roots and can lead to the erosion of the riverbank. So coppicing leaves the roots intact and stops any form of massive erosion. Another way to protect existing tansy clumps is to control Himalayan balsam, to remove it. I guess we should mention ragwort at this point. Ragwort is a slightly poisonous plant that many people with agricultural fields will remove so it doesn't get into the hay and poison livestock. A lot of removal each year. There was a worry that people can confuse ragwort and tansy, so some of their action groups have been providing expertise to help people with identification skills. So they know the difference between ragwort, which has got outer florets, ray florets, the petal things, and tansy, which just looks like little yellow pom-poms. The second major strategy is to expand existing tansy clumps and to make all of them more interconnected. This has been done by volunteers planting what are called tansy islands, which are teeny tiny, well not teeny tiny, they're quite sizable clumps between the larger areas. This is joining the dots, so the idea is that these islands will be less than 200 metres apart, so that's within the walking distance, the dispersal distance of the tansy beetles, so they will be able to move from patch to patch, which is great because it means if one patch gets destroyed they can move safely to some more, and it just allows a bit more genetic exchange so you don't get inbred tansy beetles with 5 antennae or something. That probably won't happen. Another part of this strategy is to create refuge sites or arc sites. So this is planting tansy away from areas that are prone to flooding and also introducing tansy beetles into that area. So the idea is if the Riveroo's population in some horrendous flooding event is completely wiped out, there'll still be little arc sites where tansy beetles exist. This has been done in the museum gardens in York around a building called the Sapien in 2012, I think. 2012? And it's also been done on the Selby Canal where 50 tansy beetles were introduced to an area of suitable habitat. Final strategy I want to mention is captive breeding. So this has been done a little bit, and one of the ideas is also to reintroduce tansy beetles from like solid existing populations into areas where they used to exist, like Wickham Fen in the part of the Great Fen area. This was tried in 2014, but surveys seem to indicate the tansy beetles did not overwinter well. And by well I mean at all. So that didn't quite work, but some important lessons have been learned, and it's all valuable information for going forwards. The final thing I want to share about tansy beetles is just an indication of the kind of passion, the love, the dedication that they've engendered in people, and really good example of this, perhaps the best example, is the recent unveiling of a tansy beetle mural in York, near York train station. And last week I asked for some photos of it, and excellent, thank you very much to everyone who sent them in. We've got Devon, we've got Jack, we've got Sean, all have sent in amazing pictures of the mural, which is amazing in itself. I should really actually find out who made it to be right and proper. Here we are, right, street artist ATM. Excellent work. That's all I have to say about tansy beetles, but now we're going to go back to our roving wildlife reporter after I've given him a briefing on what a hare actually is and looks like. He's on the trail of one right now. Away we go.
Yes, hello Phil. Genghis Marazipan here, wildlife roving cyclist reporter, on me bicycle, going around looking for wildlife. Just seen a hare running up the road, gonna charge after it and see if we can find it. Hang on a second. Hang on. Oh, going a bit out of control. Okay, bit of a painful disappointment that. Back to you.
Well, that's unfortunate. I would help, but I'm a busy man. Ooh. Next week's episode, we're going to take things slightly easier. We're just going to have a little garden update on what's going on behind me, and some very basic wildflower identification. Maybe top 5 species to look out for during the month of May. As always, thank you to everyone who's contributed to today's episode, and if you'd like to contribute to next week's episode, Discover Nature People, again, usual channel. Everyone else, find us on Twitter or at ecosapienshow@gmail.com. Thank you very much for watching, and until next time, goodbye. Tansy beetles are part of the family Chrysomelidae. Chrysomelidae.